this session about visual crafts. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you guys see it?
Yes.
All right, cool. Thank you. Awesome. So, yeah, let me just do a quick introduction on my current background. So, I'm Jeroel Padilla, lead UX designer at EdPlus. I've been with ASU for more than 10 years. I started my undergraduate degree in visual communication in 2012. I graduated in 2016. And then right after graduation, I started working at EdPlus. So at EdPlus, I'm like 9-ish years now. So it's been a long journey, living gold and maroon, running through my veins. And, throughout my career, I've been spending a lot of time leading design efforts on almost every EdPlus initiatives that we have, and some of the products that we have in our portfolio, like AUC Online, the EdPlus website, some partnerships like Starbucks, Uber, Air Force Global College, and then Sintana, among others. And it's been a collaborative environment. For me, I get to work with other work streams, not just with the pool of creatives and talented designers, but also like content writers, engineers, and also like BAs, PMs, QA people. So that's my current background. But for this particular session, I feel like if you allow me to at least do a short storytelling about my design journey, I feel like this will make sense as to, how this journey of mine will lead to this conversation that we'll be having today. So it all started with pen and paper. Since I was a kid, this is my first introduction to the world of design or art or creativity. Of course, I was a kid. I didn't really know the nuances between those terms. I don't really, as a kid, I didn't really know anything about the word craft or visual craft. But what I did know, if I go back to those younger years, is that in order to achieve that high quality of work, replication and imitation was my forte. So I would try to draw something on a piece of paper, and I'll try to replicate it as close as possible. And so me, that was my definition of craft back then. If I look back, is the highest form of craft is through replication and imitation. And if I try to find any errors or mistakes between my drawing and the original picture, then I'll need to find that. So that was my introduction to or my the beginning of my design journey. And then years later, when I went to college, I saw this graphic design course at a community college, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know there's a class that's about creating logos and putting words and pictures together to deliver a message. So for me, that's when I started to realize that, oh, okay, paper and pencil is not just about drawing or creating art. It's actually a tool that you can use to brainstorm, ideate, and then come up with ideas to communicate a message to the user. So I spent some time in design school learning the basics, really rehashing my hand skills in drawing, and exposed to different mediums, designing posters, designing experiences, designing a book, designing a clock, designing an exhibit, all these types of experiences that made me realize that, okay, of all these things that I learned so far, understanding composition, white space, typography, it's basically refining my sensitivity to design. So that's like a new type of learning that for me, it's part of my design journey. And then when I transitioned to product and UX, I thought I'll be a graphic designer who will be doing a lot of print work, smelling ink, the CMYK through my veins. But then I realized, okay, it's a different type of world. It's a new language. All of these buzzwords that I heard from the last 9 years, UX laws, personas, analytics, design systems, UX laws, even on the business side of things like ROI, success metrics, and even accessibility. It's a whole new world to me that's added to my existing toolkit and my language of, the things I learned back when I was a kid and back during my design school experience. So I learned that, okay, it's more than just the look and feel, but also the empathy that you put on the work and the message you want to get to the user. And I know most of you are already in this journey right here. You are taking your masters, you're learning all these types of things. There's more to this in this picture. I know, and that's something that you are already part of this journey. But then the current state that I'm right now, and I think most of you are too, is entering the world of AI. And for me, this is the exciting part. Every year, every month, it gets better. Lots of tools came up. I tried it myself. I tried to incorporate these tools to my everyday work, to my presentations, some of the culture activities at work, I building music in seconds. It's like it's fascinating to me because now we have all these tools available at our hands that we can now use to improve and simplify and speed up our design process. The world of automation and exploration. I feel like that's one of the exciting tools of the AI tools because it fills in the skill gaps and reduce the boring, technically tedious tasks that often required in design. And for me, I was able to identify that because I've been through the tedious work, you know, pre-AI, pre-chat GPT. There's a lot of tedious work. For me, I see this as an advantage. And I know most of you are already exploring this world. I think everybody here in this call are exploring the world of AI, all the tools, chat GPT, Figma make, in just a matter of clicks and a few prompts, you'll be able to build something fast. Up to this point, that's the moment I started thinking deeply. Because these generative AI tools are now enabling people to create things they never could before. This widespread access to AI, it's not just us designers who are the ones capable of producing design outputs. Even non-designers can do it too. Like, they don't have to be a visual designer to create an illustration or a content designer to create UX writing or an interaction designer to create a website, just like using Figma Make or Cursor or similar tools. So that was the type of kind of like a turning point to me. Started to reassess my journey back then up to this point. I was like, okay, in this age of AI, where do we position ourselves as designers? What's our differentiator? Because if everyone can do it, if these tools can now build and produce output that could be better than your output, and if other non-designers can use these tools, what's our status at this stage, right? So for me, this type of realization that connected everything to my past, that story that I told you, to where design is heading in my perspective. So I tried to come up with my own framework based on my story. I was thinking, what if those times I spent I was a kid, that replication and imitation of work to help me identify the spot of errors, and the time I spent on design school is for me to really train myself to have an eye for design. And those times I learned in school to understand the different brands and how you interpret a brand is to for me to build my design taste. And the toolkits that we've been learning the tricks in Photoshop, in Illustrator, using ChatGPT, using Google Notebook LM, all the UX tools and theories that we've been spending like our time learning, those tools, yes, they are important. And I'm not saying that you don't want to do it. Actually, I encourage you to keep learning and exploring. That's our time right now. Like we're trying to learn these tools so we can learn more techniques for us to translate our ideas and creativity, right? So for me, if I have all these ingredients in my framework, would I be able to achieve the greatest form of visual craft? Would that be my differentiator at this age of AI where, the AI tools is already available? to everyone. So, like I said, these toolkits, this is our present time. We're already doing this and keep on doing it. There's so many things that we can learn every day. The AI tools are getting smarter and smarter every single, like every month, every quarter, every year. Let's take advantage of those. However, and I'll share it to you in a bit that these toolkits, just because you're using it, doesn't mean it will reflect you, your visual craft, and you as a designer, because they're not your replacements, right? So for me, if there's one thing that if we need to train ourselves, something that it doesn't really take overnight, because these toolkits at our dispense, we can spend a day or two, a week learning about tools, techniques, or tips and tricks. But if there's one thing or two things that we need to focus on that takes really like time, years to master, I would say these two things: the eye for design and design phase. For me, the two ingredients are these differentiators that will help you form your visual craft. It is something that, in my opinion, the authentic version of you, your fingerprint, your authentic perspective to the world that you can influence to your craft and how you can influence others and your future project. All right. So I already mentioned all these words, right? I think I need to at least do a little bit of like explaining of this words that I keep mentioning here. Craft, visual craft, eye for design, and design taste. So let's start with the word craft. On the Zoom chat, just really quick, what's that one word that you think of when you see the word craft? You can just like type in the chat. Uh, it could be anything. It's a open-ended question. What word comes to your mind when you hear the word craft? All right, Susan says it's a skill. Sammy said it's expert skills. And we hear this word all the time, right? The word craft. It always comes up in everyday conversations, in an article, in a job interview. I see Gordon Ramsay in his reality show mentioning about the word craft. Even musicians have the word. They also use the word craft. So it's not just designers. It's actually a very universal word to me, and I feel like we need to start understanding this vague concept of profit, how we can learn from this definition. So, and then Raji says creating, Alice says profession. Those are really good words. But let's understand what craft really is. So I tried to look up some definitions out there from different professionals around the world, and they came up with this like definitions. There's a lot, but I just picked a few. Craft is universal. It's a big one. It's like a value or an endeavor that you can apply to everything. It can be music, gardening, food, film, or even lifestyle. There's the magic of like handling materials with thought and care. So it's something that all of us can understand, appreciate, and pursue. A craft can also be a discipline. It's something that a type of view that we emphasize craft as an earned skill in the service of creativity. It's the way of doing things exceptionally through study, practice, and dedication. It's a commitment. It's basically a form of expression, a way of life. Craft can also be a verb, an action word, right? Whether you're an artist pursuing a personal vision or a technical innovation or a community project to teach children the joy of handwork. Craft is a moving vehicle. So if you think about it, any one of us, can use this word craft in our everyday work. The people behind Figma slides, the tool that I'm using to present, this is their craft, right? If you think of the device that I'm using, this MacBook Pro that I'm using, the people behind it who built it, they spent hours and days and months to get to this type of craft. So every little thing that you're seeing out there, there's different levels of craft, the highest form of craft. And it's really up to us to tell the difference, like what's good and what's bad. And so how can we apply these concepts or the gist of the word craft to our work. So visual craft, what I like about this definition is that it refers to the set of techniques. So for me, it's like the culmination of everything that you learn and the things that you're about to learn that will benefit you in order to achieve this greatest form of visual craft. It's like you know, combining your precision skills, your passion, you're investing in this creation of craftsmanship. In the digital product design world, they mention the word craft as like a technical skill, a strategic creativity, care, attention to detail, and commitment. So I already mentioned that word commitment already. Um, this is the a type of thing where a designer who values craft cares about delivering great work. So if you notice from this definition, they mention about the word precision and attention to detail. And that's actually what I was telling you about, like one of the main ingredients that will help you achieve your visual craft is through having a eye for design. It's basically an ability to see, notice the details that others overlook, and recognize when something feels off or perfectly bad or imperfectly balanced. So that's actually wrong. Um, I can tell you, like the world of graphic designers and UX designers or UI designer or anyone who's using their hand or using something to compose or build something on a page, we are obsessed with details. Like any other regular user, they don't care as much about that small little padding or alignment, but we care because that represents what we do, and that represents the structure and order and professionality of our work. That's why whenever we present to our stakeholders, our leadership, to the wider audience, we always care about the small details, right? Even like a book designer, when before they even publish the book and make 1,000 copies of that book, they want to make sure they don't leave any typo or a misspelled word in the book title. Otherwise, it's gonna be very obvious. It's gonna be too late. It's gonna be it's gonna cost a lot of money. So leveraging your design craft or at least being inspired by good craftsmanship can actually benefit you in the long term. For me, like it can be the difference between a good and an excellent professional. Uh, I learned along the way that by looking at your visual craft, that already tells me so much about you as a designer without even talking to you or like looking at your portfolio resume. Just by looking at your craft, that already tells me a lot. So for me, it's really important that we develop this type of care for the design craft that which requires experience, time, study, constant practice, and dedication. All right. So with that being said, I'd like to at least focus on the how we can train our two senses. Oops. Do you have a question? Oh, cool. All right. So design taste and our design eye. And then let's see here. I already mentioned briefly about design taste. So let's talk about design eye. Let's talk about design taste. Um, it's something that if you've heard about it before, you might think of it as like, okay, it's like your personal collection of your favorite things or tools, right? But it's more than that actually. Design taste is your ability to refine and decide. It's like knowing when something feels done, like when to simplify or when to hold back. It's like your sense of judgment, your personal and someone's aesthetic compass. Like even Dylan Field, like the CEO of FEMA, said that taste isn't something you're born with, it's a loop. You experience something, decide if you like it, ask why, and repeat. Over time, you form your own framework. Just like what I did when I did a recollection of my design story, your personal definition of what good design means to you. So it's like taste isn't innate, it's built through curiosity. Like the more you expose yourself to art, music, design, and ideas, and reflect on why they move you, the more refined your taste becomes. So you can tell from this guy who builds this product for art UX designers to use, has this type of like perspective about taste as something that goes beyond the world that we live in. Like you don't have to stick to the world of UX so that become an expert at UX. We need to look at your surroundings, look at the world, and see how this world works and how it affects you, how it influences you, and that's basically how you can start refining your design taste. So um, there's also another definition from Elizabeth Godspeed, who's the US editor at It's Nice That article, if you've been to that website. Um, it's this and this is very timely. It's like if you have the design taste, you can help yourself navigate the vast sea of possibilities. Imagine with so many work out there, you see like a lot of websites, you see a lot of like web apps, print materials, posters, movies, books, and then with this type of skill, like how can you make sure that just because it's out there, it's in the public, doesn't mean that it's a good design, right? So that is something we need to start working on and start looking into is how can we acquire that and build your sense of taste in design. According to Nielsen Norman Group, as AI closes the gap on technical execution, the true differentiator for designers isn't skill, speed. It's actually taste. AI can generate dozens of decent layouts, as I mentioned earlier, but only a designer can, with refined taste, can decide which one actually communicates well. So primarily, the idea of this is when you have this, sense of taste, you're also shifting from production to judgment. We have this like sense of judgment from doing the work to directing the work. You're trying to influence a work, someone else's work, and the vision of that work, right? If we have that sense of judgment. As I mentioned, since AI narrows the gap in technical skill alone is no longer the differentiator it used to be. And design taste is now the new competitive advantage. So you can recognize what's good, looks like, and feels like, and what separates you from machines and amateurs or someone who's just using these tools to produce good output. It's your designer's judgment and your sensitivity and aesthetics and understanding of context that give work a human quality. So there's like a human touch to this. The authenticity when you have this taste that is built, and it's not born, it's built. And as I mentioned, through exposure, constant critiques, training, and reflection, studying design patterns, analyzing what works and what doesn't work, you're building that sense of quality for developing your taste. So if you think about it, like musicians, chefs, artists, um, you know, those types of people, they refine their intuition through experience and repetition. So we need to start thinking about this. Um, so with that being said, I put together all these reflection questions and I realized that the more you train your design eye and your design taste, you also train yourself to ask the right questions as well, right? So I have this like list of questions. There's a lot actually here, but I just picked at least a few questions that we can use for our next activity, which is a design critique. And I wanna ask you a favor. If you can take a screenshot of this slide or use your phone, take a picture of this slide right here with questions because we're going to use some of these questions to do a design critique of our work. So if you have a moment, um, yeah, please take a picture of this. I'll give you like a couple of seconds, and when everybody's ready, then we can move on to the next slide. And by the way, I don't know why it's the Zoom thing. It's like it keeps the hand icon showing up. So please ignore that. Um, all right, cool. Now if everybody's good to go, let's actually start with our design critique. So we'll look at a few examples, not just websites, signages, print materials, as part of this design critique, because we learned from the definition of craft that we need to see the world, our surroundings and how we can learn from our environment we live in. But then a quick definition of a design critique. It's basically a collaborative session where we, as a team, analyze and provide constructive feedback on the design to improve it. So it's the goal here is to refine the work and foster a culture of continuous improvement and having an open dialogue. So it's not really judging the designer personally. So we're not, we don't have the intention to hurt someone's feelings, but the intention here is to using our judgment, our taste, our eye for design, how we can collaborate together to improve someone's work. So let's start with the first one. I took this picture at Tempe Marketplace. By the way, I always like taking pictures of random things. I have a lot to show. I just have it on my phone. Every time I see something interesting, whether it's a good or a bad object or a sign or a design, I take a picture of it and I try to look at it and to see, and ask, I try to ask a lot of questions about it. Like it doesn't have to be like this example, like even like the signages, even the way the door is open, like the way you open the door handle, like the lamp, like even the walls, like how the structure, the construction of the building looks like. I try to take pictures and learn from how the person behind it ended up with that type of output, right? So let's start with this one. With the questions that you have, and of course, feel free to ask more questions. This is going to be an open dialogue. I want you to start looking at this signage, and right off the bat, what is like the first thing you notice? You can either leave your answers in the chat, or you just use your microphone and just let's have an open conversation.
The first thing I noticed was the typography being
Okay.
used.
For which one? Overall or just the
Just the ASU steals and deals.
okay,
That's where my eyes first went.
okay,
Yeah, it's the same thing. It was, I don't know, I was feeling mostly because I've interacted with the ASU brand a lot. I was like, is this off? Like it kept coming in my head. Something is off. But I was like, maybe they're trying to play around with, since it's a marketplace, they're trying to play around with the brand. But that was the first thing that caught my attention.
okay. Anyone else? And it could be anything. There's no right and wrong with our critique, so don't feel like you're hesitant to share, and it should be fine. We just need to bring up something about what we observe on this signage right here.
For some reason, I feel it to be very dull.
Dull, okay.
Dull, yeah.
Mhm.
It's like steals and deals always try to catch us. Yes, the typography kind of grabs. Apart from that, it is like it seems dull. I
Mhm.
don't know. I feel only they have used the maroon. There are like more captivating colors of ASU. Or again, on the other side, it's a marketing way. I'm not sure about that, but I personally felt it to be very dull.
Okay. And then Sammy from the Zoom chat, he said the white color on the typo is not too legible on yellow background in terms of color accessibility. It's a good point too. So overall, I have the same sentiments as well. The color looks really dull because maybe because I'm seeing gold and maroon for so many years now. I could tell the difference right away. They're not really. Is it because of the way they printed out? Are they using the right color? I'm not sure. The signage, the first thing that you see is the title. If you stand 10 feet away or 5 feet from the sign, that's the first thing you'll see. Of course, how does this look like at daytime? I took the picture at nighttime. So you're not just looking at the design itself, but like the way it's placed on the area. How does this look like when you're standing far from it? If you get closer, how does that look like? But for me, these are the things that I observed. I checked the composition of the work. And I'm trying to make sense of the smallest details that they added to the signage right here. For example, the blob element right there in the background. I just tried to ask myself because I don't know who the designer is. I wish I could ask that designer. But what does it represent? Does it represent the A letter form? Because the shape here that looks like an A, just to have that connection between the ASU and the shape. Or is it an arrow that points upward? Does it kind of looks like an arrow, but the shape it's pointing upwards? Or is it just purely decorative? If it's decorative, why what's with this blob element? It could be anything else, right? It's open-ended. But why this element? What about the lines? What does it represent? Is it just a style? Is this an added element to make things, like attractive? Or does it represent the flow? Does it represent the flow to the fountain? Because in Tempe Marketplace, they have a fountain in there with the sign, the district, maybe. Of course, they're using the right color. What about the text? It looks like it's a 3D text, right? Is it inspired by the signage? As you can see here, the district signage is like 3D with like lights on it. So maybe the designer tried to replicate that style onto the poster. So there's like a lot of like connections between what's on the picture and what's on the composition. So you can see here like every single detail that they put in here. I try to ask those questions like how are they connecting as a whole? What are the relationships between these elements instead of like adding random shapes and elements? Because we could always do that, right? We could add a couple of things here and there, make it look beautiful. But sometimes you get to ask yourself twice, like, this is already approved, it's already out there. I've been seeing this signage like for a while now. The stakeholder loves it, maybe. The supervisor loves it, maybe. It's already approved. So now, start to ask your question like, okay, if you were the designer, how would you design this differently? And the next time you do something like this, you will try to think of like the intention behind every single element you see on this particular example. So, okay, putting the person at the bottom feels weird. Yes, I feel like it's like a last minute thing that they added there too. I wish they could make her bigger, maybe. I don't know. It's also the size of that signage, it's a different type of format. So something you need to think of too. Uh, let's start with the second example. This is an example of a landing page built using ASU standards. And then this is already looking like a high fidelity. This designer is about to present this to the stakeholders and leadership, and it's already ready for development. But let's take a moment here and observe, and if you can point out one or two things you see in this design.
To me, the hero image looks a bit stretched out. I mean,
Okay,
it looks like it's a video, but the people in the image look very stretched out.
okay,
Yeah, same. That's what caught my eyes first. It was like it feels so stretched. Yeah, and again, it says it is a video, but even in that case, the stretched video might not be like a good option to go with. Another thing I notice is I don't know if it is the error or something in the aesthetic explorations. There is one arrow which, I mean, the chevron drop down, which seems to be of a different color. It's like it seems gray, the second one. All others are having that pitch black.
okay.
I feel like the distance, I mean, the spacing between each section is different. For example, for the first hero section and the second section, it is a bit small, the spacing, and whereas for the second and third, it's a bit more. So I think it's not consistent across the side.
All right. So a few comments in the Zoom chat. The letter spacing looks different only for aesthetic explorations. And then I prefer a transition from picture to section. The inconsistency with title casing is off-putting. Okay. The cultivating design card is not visible on same white dotted background. Cool. This is really interesting. Like, you know, you just keep asking these questions. Like, the more you see, the more you ask, right? And the more you ask, the more you think. And the more you think, the more you start, like, realizing, okay, can we make this better? How can we do this differently? What other things we could do here? There's no right and wrong approach. If I ask another set of designers to critique this, I would get a different response too. And that's the good thing about the design. Like, this is just an example of many 1,000 ways to design this content. But what we're doing here is you look at this page, it seems ready for presentation or even development, right? It looks like a high fidelity. It's like it's almost done. But once you zoom in and start noticing those small inconsistencies that you just mentioned, like, it could be minor, but together they reveal something deeper, a lack of intentionality. That shows that that particular designer was focused on finishing rather than crafting. So here are some of my notes. That's a lot. It's actually a lot. It's very minor. I can tell you from a regular user's eye, they won't mind it. But then, as I mentioned earlier, your craft tells me more about you as a designer, especially if when a designer lacks an eye for design, when they stop trying to know or taking their time noticing the relationships between elements, like how rhythm, balance, and hierarchy work together for the stakeholders, because they just there to approve things, right? It might look still fine, but for another designer, your supervisor, and for other people you're working with, maybe you're an engineer, that signals a gap between visual awareness and care. I told you the story of that book designer. Before they publish a book, they have to make sure they proofread everything, they double check everything, because once it's out there, it's out there. Why can we take that same type of care to the work that we're doing? It doesn't have to be a book. It may not be a work that you will own, like a portfolio or like a piece of art, but the type of care is what makes you unique as a designer. And that's our job, is to pay attention to those types of things. Yes, they're saying we need to stop pushing pixels. We need to, we're problem solvers. We solve problems through UX. Oh yes, I'm not gonna argue with that. I 100% agree. However, the other aspect, you don't have to push pixels, but just having that's spatial awareness and visual awareness of what you're doing is not about perfection. It's your ability to see. It's ability for you to question and refine. Every small detail communicates something about your craft. I told you it takes time, patience, and practice, but until it becomes your second nature, you wouldn't even notice you're already doing it, because you're taking your time, your moment to make sure that everything you present to your team, to your colleague, is in a good craft condition. So it's, like I said, design eye isn't about making things perfect, it's about making them intentional. So here's the last example that I want to bring up for our critique before we move on to our last part of our session. I didn't design this. I don't want to take a credit for it. I found this on LinkedIn. It's a designer who went to Sam's Club and she saw this receipt and she started redesigning it while she was waiting for her car to get repaired. And she came up with this redesigned receipt. So now here's an example of like critiquing her critique, because they actually spent on her LinkedIn explaining what are the things that she found, what are the questions she asked. So I just want you to take a moment and see like the original receipt and the redesigned receipt, and this time let's try and think what are the questions or the things that she noticed on the original receipt that made her decide to redesign it. Maybe just one or two questions.
I think one of the things she asked ourselves where is it properly aligned? And also she probably thought of what will be the most important information that can stand out, right? In terms of the logo by adding more color to the logo. And she really tried to like create some form of like hierarchy from like the store's contact information to the purchasing details and just really aligned everything together and categorized them into different sections. So I guess those were some of the questions that she asked herself over and over again. How can I categorize this? How can I align this? How can I create hierarchy?
Well said, Alice. Also, does Sam's Club brand identity stand out enough? All right. Does it feel harmonious? What about the information hierarchy? What about the print itself? It's like black and white. It's not colored. Is it sustainable? That's why they're doing it that way.
I felt like she was confused of how much should she pay because the numbers are like clubbed together and the balance and the cash used. So she thought she would like arrange them so that it would be easy for her to know what was spent for what. Here it is like everything is like clunky one after the other and not representing. The ultimate aim of a bill is to like let the purchaser know what is being purchased and how much and what how it is being utilized. So I thought she thought of it and made a way more clearer on how the price distribution is being done and what is there in their account.
Okay. All right. So here are the questions that she asked. I think most of these are something that you are already thinking about. And these questions led her to redesign this in an hour at the store. And here's something I want to reveal. The comments in LinkedIn. It's actually mixed reviews. And what's interesting to me is like the comments became a design critique almost. And not just about the design, but also like their point of view of like the intention of this designer. Why did she redesign this in the first place? It's a lot of mixed reviews actually. It's really interesting to see like the people say, "Oh, this is really nice," and you're looking that's the smallest things, and we try to fix it, and then another person says, I wish we don't label everything UX. It's about print world. We don't care about that. We are UX people. We care about the computer screens and mobile and tablet. And another one says like, yeah, but where UX shows up, that's it. Like we just see a problem and we fix it. Someone mentioned about the tool that's used for printing. It's different from the things that we're doing, right? That's why it looks that way. There's a specific machine and technology used for printing out this receipts. And someone is like, I don't care about receipt. It's not, I don't have any problem with it. Throw it away anyway. I don't look at it. Sometimes I don't ask for a receipt. It's interesting like how you hear these people's like point of view about certain things. And I don't want to disagree with them nor agree. I'm just here listening to their thoughts and frustrations. But if there's one thing I want to admire to this designer is that she finds something and she wants to fix it. And what's the takeaway from this? Maybe another type of learning experience. Of course, that's it, and it's like it's not really a problem to have, but for her, it's something that needs fixing, and that's what she did. I was hoping that she was more clear about her intention so that she doesn't get a lot of like mixed reviews, right? Like, well, what was her intention for doing this? But for me, this is a good example of like how you look around you, your surroundings, and in split second you will say something about it. Oh my god, that looks awful. Oh my god, I wish this designer does this. I wish we have a technology to do this. Because why not? Right? What if we have a new technology that makes beautiful receipts? It's so beautiful that you can keep it and bookmark it or use it as your bookmark or frame it, right? Why not? So and no, and regular people will always complain about things. But for us, we could complain, but we complain with a proposed answer or solution, and that's what we do. That's what we do every day. Why do you like a certain movie? Why do you hate a certain TV show? What resonates with you, right? And we take an action about it. We're the consumers too. You're not just a designer, but also a consumer. And this is a good example of doing these types of things like design critique and how we can learn not from this pool of designers, but also from the people around you and the people who's touching this product, right? So to wrap up this conversation, I just wanted to highlight a few things, habits that will strengthen your visual craft. Uh, I only have a few, but of course, as you start doing this on your own, you will come up with your own set of tips and habits. So uh, the first one here is still like an artist. Uh, when you're trying to recreate someone else's work, you're not just copying, but you're also training your eye. This is the realization that I had when I was a kid. Like why I spent hours and hours replicating a drawing, right? And for me, I was like, oh, okay, because I'm helping myself, training my design eye. It's like musicians learning to play a guitar and covering a song, right? Before writing their own. I also started doing that too. I played a guitar. I spent years learning the basic chords before I start writing my own song. I started playing someone else's song and try to work on my craft on that one. So it could be anything. You could rebuild a design. As you start doing it, you will start noticing the invisible decisions, the spacing, the rhythm, the alignment, the constraints. It's about building sensitivity to what makes a design work. And then part of that is like redesigning a page. This type of exercise, it's about, it's not about redesigning for perfection. It's about developing critical thinking. When you rework a page, you're practicing the art of diagnosing, like identifying what feels off, what could be clearer, and what deserves hierarchy. You're actually replicating that work to yourself too. Like when you're trying to redesign a page, it feels like as though you're the designer of that page. And when you start putting all the pieces together, you will see like the intention behind like the layout, how the elements are placed together, the responsiveness of a work by just replicating. At this age where we have a lot of design systems and templates out there that anyone can start using, just use a template, replace text and image, and call it a day. Anyone can do it. But if you really need to train your eye, you could use a template, but I want you to study what makes that template work. Why do you like about it? And try to incorporate those things that you learn to your everyday work, right? So maybe take of one or two things about that good work and incorporate to your everyday work. So even if it's like fixing like one element, you're already building that designer's intuition for balance and intent. So over time, that intuition becomes automatic. It's like your design reflex, right? Because you've been exposed to good design. So the moment you see someone else's work, you already have this design reflex of like, okay, that looks off. In a few seconds, you'll see like that doesn't look right because you've seen something better. So that's a good way for you to do it. And of course, based on our exercise, our design critique, UX is everywhere. Study and observe. The best designers are curious beyond the screen, so I want you to stay curious. Whether in a grocery store or in a restaurant or in Sam's Club, right? Or maybe you're watching a Netflix show or using a messenger app or a social media app. Or maybe how the movie sets the mood before the first line of dialogue. You need to start observing the world around you. Because design isn't just something we make, it's like something we notice. Because at the end of the day, we're designers solving world's problems. So in order to solve those world's problems, you need to understand and appreciate the world around you. So stay curious and connect those insights back to your work. Double check your work always. And this is part of that training you need to start doing to yourself for your visual craft is, like I said, the smallest mistakes, we're not perfect. one or two mistakes can happen at the time. I also experienced that too. But then if there's any like very obvious mistakes on your work, right? Misaligned button, a typo, an even margin, it can lower the perceived quality of your work. It changes despite the efforts that you put. If they see that red flag, that changes everything. So take your time to proofread and review your work. It's a form of respect for your craft and your audience and to yourself too, right? You're spending time, hours and hours working on something. Have a respect to your craft, to yourself. Because when you deliver something clean and thoughtful, that's the discipline right there. And that discipline, I'm sorry, that discipline builds credibility. So craft is care. So show that care to your work in the details so that no one else talks about. But that's for me, something for you to keep in mind. Keep learning those tools, AI tools, keep experimenting. Use those to augment your existing work. They're good for efficiency, for speed, but like I said earlier, they cannot replace your judgment. This is really good to generate a bunch of options, experiment, but then if you have a good design eye and design taste, if you see like 100 variations of your work, you should be able to identify which one stands out to you, which one resonates with you the most. The future belongs to designers who know how to collaborate with technology without losing their humanity. So think of these tools as your assistants, your sidekicks. They will help you set your vision. And this is the last thing I want to leave you guys with is be happy with your work. When I was in design school, I was showing my work to my professor. I was hoping to get some approval. Like, okay, this is good. Move on. You get an A plus. But then he asked me a question. Are you happy about it? That made me think for a second. I was like, what do you mean I'm happy about it? Like, are you happy about it? And I said, like, yeah, then good. Good job. That made me think for a bit. I was like, what do you mean by that? Because, sometimes we were so obsessed about like, okay, we need to get this one right so we get an approval, so we can get a high grade, so we can move on. But then, looking back, I just realized that maybe in real world we don't have to think it that way. There's no A plus in real world. It's a different type of environment, right? So you're spending your entire life with this passion, with this profession. Sometimes you need to find happiness with your work, you know? Even if this is a small project or a bigger project, are you happy with it? Because if you're happy about it, then you know for sure that someone else who will consume your product will be happy as well. So if you don't find happiness with it, at least be happy with that person who will consume your product. Or be happy because the stakeholder or the leadership will appreciate it, or your coworker or your family will love it. Um, the the thing about what we do is that it's hard to know when to stop. When we keep on iterating our work, we just don't know like, is this good enough? Is this done? Maybe it's not. Like you always have that second thought in your mind, like, okay, I'm gonna show this to my supervisor, but you don't feel confident about your work because you just wanna show it and then get feedback and then refine it and show it again. But sometimes you know yourself, like if you are satisfied with your work, it's good to go. You check twice, four times, everything's good to go, and you're happy. You already have this feeling that, oh, this is gonna be okay. And there's a moment when you need to let your work breathe sometimes, reflect and move on to the next challenge too. So it's a continuous learning and process. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, everything that we're doing needs to be perfect. Now, every project you finish is a snapshot of where your craft is right now. So you should be proud of in everything that you're doing, everything that you're sharing to your team. And then uh, as we get closer to our time, what's next, right? How can you start building your momentum from here? So I'm not gonna go through all this list of things. You can take a screenshot of this, but what can you do now after this presentation, this weekend, this winter break, or over the next few months? You need to start thinking about your next move. You might say, "Oh, Jeroel, you're just giving me another task. We're already doing a lot of things already in school. We have family plans. I'm already learning how to use After Effects and things like that." I'm sorry, but the world out there is tough, and the world out there is unknown. So if we don't put an extra effort to leverage our visual craft, we'll get left behind. So this is going to be our responsibility for ourselves as designers. So to end this conversation, I just wanted to share you this book and a quote from this graphic designer. Not sure if you know him, but he's a well-known graphic designer. He's Paul Rand. He's the person behind the iconic logo, the IBM, UPS, and the ABC logo. He went to ASU mid-90s. He had a conversations with design students. And I have this book with me. You can also find a PDF of this on out there if you wanna grab a copy. But I want to leave you this message that he left to his students. How can you differentiate yourself, right? Of course, this code right here, it sounds funny because it's so specific to graphic design, right? What distinguishes you from a cow or a computer operator? But in today's world, as a UX designer, how would you distinguish yourself from a machine and an amateur? Thank you guys for joining this conversation. I appreciate it.